Look there. Okay, are we going? We're gonna go. We're gonna go. Okay, season 6, episode 3. Hello, welcome to this episode of Fandom Frenzy with Flash, which is of course me. I'm Flash, your host, and in this episode, we're gonna recap what went down in the 3rd episode of season 6 of Game of Thrones, also known as Oathbreaker. I wonder who that's about. Just kidding. I know exactly who that's about. You know who that's about too. So the recaps for the episodes have been pretty interesting and also pretty telling this season. Look, first and foremost, we see Dany, and instantly I'm like, it's a Dany episode in which we see her for more than 20 seconds at a time. Yes, Dany episode. And then the rest of the recap's just let's catch up with literally everyone in the world other than Jon Snow now that we know that he's alive. Why would we need to see him again? Just kidding, the recap was misleading. Jon Snow is right here and also super naked. Have we decided how much time has elapsed between Jon Snow dying and Jon being resurrected? Is it 24 hours, 3 days, perhaps? Maybe, I don't know. And the Red Woman looks more surprised that Jon Snow is alive than the entirety of the Game of Thrones fandom. We do glean a lot of information in this little interaction. For example, that per George R.R. Martin, there's no afterlife. And also that this whole thing is going to be way less satisfying than I thought it was gonna be. Jon's just as angsty as he was before. In fact, he seems kind of upset that he's alive at all.
I shouldn't be here.
Bran, oh my god. Okay, so I think at this point we're finally gonna see how Jon Snow came to be because young Ned Stark has made an appearance for the first time. And man, let's just talk about that casting for a second because that was some good casting. I have been waiting for this justification for so long, and there's some not very well choreographed, but very well edited fighting, fighty, and then Bran learns a very valuable life lesson, and that's that parents can be petty and tell lies because they're human. There's also a life lesson that I recently learned. And then that man in the tree, I have to wait a whole other episode to find out that Jon Snow's a Targaryen. Jon Targaryen. It doesn't really have a ring to it at all. Jon Targaryen, first of his name. No, I'm just really not feeling that one. We do finally see Dany because I thought she was going to be much more prevalent in this episode. She of course isn't, obviously, because everybody hates me. She does not look thrilled to be at Vas Dothrak, not even a little bit. And there are some more threats made to her, but empathetic threats, is that a thing? Against her in the minute and a half that she's on screen. And she looks like she could burn the whole world to the ground. And she could, and I kind of want her to. I like the character of Varys a lot. In the book and in the show as well, I actually don't have a favorite version of him because I think both were done really well. But I think that this is the first time that we've seen the spider do his weaving, and it was kind of disturbing for me, honestly. And as for Tyrion, I think that we could probably make a drinking game this season based on how often Tyrion looks really, really uncomfortable, and I think he'd approve. And there it is, sanctioned by Tyrion himself, drinking games. So we learn a lot about Varys this episode. Not only how he goes about making his connections and making things happen, but also who he primarily uses to do it. He uses children as his infamous little birds. And now Cersei and everybody else know it. And it's so smart to use these poor children. And I've never considered it before. Everyone speaks freely in front of children because they don't expect them to understand anything. And I guess also that maybe they can fit into small spaces or something. So they take some of the information that they've gained and they sit on this small council meeting, right? And for once, the Lannisters have a pretty good point about Dorne and the Sand Snakes, and the small council, they just leave them sitting there alone and awkward, and they're we're not working with you guys. And I guess that's what happens whenever you're an awful asshole for 5 years running. However, I will say they have done a really great job this season in these past 3 episodes, making us being able to empathize with Cersei Lannister. Well, that's not something we've really had before. The gods certainly did not work through Tywin Lannister, and the way the High Sparrow tries to manipulate Tommen is so disgusting that I actually want to scream. Arya gets her ass kicked, scene 3, and also the first character development she's experienced in 3 seasons. I keep forgetting that we aren't done with Ramsay Snow. Like, things keep happening, and I just don't care at all. And I think now that Sansa is gone, that has a lot to do with it. Who we didn't see in this episode, by the way, at all. And only saw last episode as a plot device to see that Theon is heading to the Iron Islands. But then holy Rickon Stark, where the have you been for the last 5 seasons? Oh, and hello Asha, you too. I personally refuse to believe that they killed Shaggy Dog and that all we have left are Ghost and Nymeria, who's like lost or maybe free, depending on how you look at it, or with Lady Stoneheart, who we were totally promised this season and have still yet to see. That's neither here nor there. Jon gets his revenge against Alistair Thorne, and then Thorne speaks all like nobly and I just want him to stop already. I'm over it, and I'm over his stupid punchable face. And then there's Ollie's stupid face, again with the face. And then Jon Snow ends the episode, the 3rd in a row, by the way, in which he ends, with the most epic mic drop of all mic drops. My watch has ended. Except he's like, my watch is ended. That's basically how he says it. He's so sassy. Sassy Jon Snow.
My watch is ended.
So first of all, I called that. Granted, along with like the majority of the fandom. But who wants to take bets on where he goes? Because I'm betting as far from the wall as he can possibly get. Like maybe across the narrow sea? Something about ice dragons. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Fandom Frenzy with Flash, in which we recapped and ranted about Oathbreaker, which is obviously about Jon Snow, although technically did not break an oath, okay? He died, his watch ended. It's over. He can do whatever the he wants now. If you enjoyed this episode, then go ahead and hit the like button and share it with your other Game of Thrones obsessed friends. And go ahead and subscribe because we're going to be putting out these videos every week for your viewing pleasure. Bye. Okay, so there's this theory that the entirety of A Song of Ice and Fire is actually the Book of Revelations, and that Dany is the beast, and she actually ends up being like the power-hungry bad guy, and Jon Snow ends up finding this ice dragon, and the White Walkers are actually the good guys, and like plagues are like come upon the earth and shit like that, and then Jon Snow and the White Walkers descend upon Westeros on ice dragons and kill the shit out of everybody in a very Rapture end of the world type fashion. It's a lot of stuff.